Cloud.
Welcome, everyone. And I want to give a special shout out to our guests. Thank you for coming. Did you drive all the way from legislatures?
I did.
Please.
Yeah, that's why I'm in exercise clothes. I lost track of time.
That's okay.
The-
I am. All right, well, I'm going to call the meeting to order. It will be being recorded, and welcome again to tonight's Cascade Speakeasy meeting, the theme Go Green for a Better Tomorrow. I'm going to pass it over to, is Rob? No, I'm going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So normally, Rob Tidd is our son in arms. Jacob, that would normally say that. And I had to put my glasses on to make sure because I actually can't see with them. I'm going to pass it over to our Toastmaster this evening, Brian Brett.
Good evening, Toastmasters. I don't have a joke of the day. It's Pat does.
Oh, yay! I have a joke.
Okay.
It was cracking up when I saw it, so I have to share it. Okay. A very religious man was thinking about how good his wife was to him. So he prayed to God to give thanks. To the man's astonishment, the booming voice of God spoke to him. Man says, God, I'm so grateful you gave me my wife. If I may ask, my Lord, why did you make her so beautiful? And God said, I made her so beautiful so that you could love her, my son. The man said, well, and why did you make her so kind-hearted? And God said, I made her such so that you could love her, my son. And the man said, and God, why did you make her such an amazing cook? God said, I blessed her with the talent of cooking so that you could love her, my son. The man said, oh, thank you, Lord. But forgive me, I must ask one more question. Why, God, did you make her so dumb? And God said, I made her dumb, my son, so that she could love you.
Thank you, Pat. That was a good one. Introducing guests. I know Barbara introduced Jacob. Celia, is your first live in-person meeting?
It is.
Yeah, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Actually, it's her first live Toastmasters meeting, period. She was in the other club, but never live, I don't think.
We never relied.
All right, well, welcome. And now I'll introduce the general evaluator, which is Pat Whitfield.
Should have stayed up for
All righty. Well, my job is to look at the large picture, to identify the things that we do well and the things that might be a little bit more challenging, the things that need to be polished a little bit and aren't quite there, and to help us to identify things that we could do better in the future. And I have a wonderful team of talented people. So the first evaluating speech number 1 is Vicki Chatterton. Vicki will be evaluating Selena's speech.
All right, yes, I will be evaluating Selena's speech. She is doing the effective body language speech, so I'm looking forward to this. The purpose is that the project she'll be delivering the speech with awareness of intentional and unintentional body language, as well as to learn, practice, and refine how she uses nonverbal communication while delivering this speech. And our timer, it is 5 to 7 minutes. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. The second evaluator is Lloyd Smith, who will be evaluating Dean's speech this evening.
Thank you, Pat. Dean is working well, we've seen this speech several times from different people, the evaluation and feedback project, which is the one where he will give the speech tonight and then employ the feedback on the speech for a second speech, either the revised version of the same speech or a different speech. The speech is called, I forgot the path you're working on.
The presentation master.
Okay, presentation mastery path. And this speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. Who is the timer? Oh, okay. Oh, Fabiola, 5 to 7 minutes, Fabiola. And I will report at the end.
Thank you very much. And then for the meticulous watching of the time, we have Fabiola, who is going to be our timer. Fabiola?
Good evening, everyone. I am the timer for this evening, and my responsibility is to, when we have our primary presenters, they are to present within 5 minutes and 7 minutes their speech. At 4 minutes, at 5 minutes, I will show my green side of my Rubik's Cube, indicating that the time has been met for 5 minutes. At 6 minutes, I will do yellow. And at 7 minutes, I will do red. For our table topics, those are 1 to 2 minutes. And at 1 minute, I will show the green side of the Rubik's Cube. At 1.5 minutes, I will show the yellow. And at 2 minutes, I will show the red. At the end of and when we have our evaluator present their feedback, they will have 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, I will provide the green. At 2.5 minutes, I will demonstrate the yellow. And at 3, I will demonstrate the red. At the end of this evening, I will then provide feedback as far as all of our times. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you, Fabiola. And how creative to use a Rubik's Cube. She's the first one who's done that. Add a little note of originality to it. We have now our grammarian, Eric Stepper.
There's a lot of hardware on there.
You only just noticed that.
My job as grammarian is to notice any egregious uses of the English language or exceptional uses of the English language. I also have a word of the day. The word of the day is abulia. Abulia. You see that? That's backwards, isn't it? I have to write it backwards. Abulia, an abnormal lack of ability to act or make decisions. Since graduating from college, my son seems to be suffering from abulia. He just can't decide what he wants to do next. Try and use that word in any of your speaking, and I will keep track and report it to the meeting.
All right, thank you very much. And last but not least, we have our counter, Steve Lynn. Steve.
And well, and so, like, are words that we tend to use to fill dead space. We become uncomfortable with the notion that our thought is finished and we're looking for the next one. But the silence is deafening, so we use these filler words. Here at Toastmasters, one of our goals is to learn to polish our speaking skills and realize that we don't need these filler words. My job tonight will be to listen to everyone speaking, make notes of errors in the use of the English language with these filler words, and give you a report so that you can work on refining your skills and not suffer the abulia of filling the silence.
With that, I will return to our Toastmaster Brian Brett.
I'll now introduce the first speaker of the night, Selena Dango. Did I say your last name correctly? The purpose of this project is to deliver a speech with awareness of your intentional and unintentional body language, as well as to learn, practice, and refine how you use nonverbal communication when delivering a speech. Prepare a 5 to 7 minute speech on a topic that lends itself to expression through your movement and gestures. Video record your presentation and get feedback from your mentor or another reviewer before speaking to your club. If you do not have access to a recording device, perform your speech in front of a mirror and make adjustments before your scheduled speech. It takes a village. Have you ever stopped to consider the community of individuals that helped you along the way? Maybe you have. Maybe you have even thanked someone that had a positive impact on your life, or even did something heroic that enables you to be part of this conversation. This speech is a reflection on the ways the village has helped me on my parenting journey. With that, welcome Selena.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for being part of my village. Thank you, Pat, if you were the one who employed my son as a 5th grader with his snow shovel as he embarked to make a little extra spending money. He didn't tell us how far he was going, but someone stopped him on his journey and hired him to shovel snow so that he didn't have to walk farther than across the Walmart parking lot to make a little extra spending money. Thank you. Maybe it was Brian Brett who talked my son out of buying a used fire truck and painting it in Panther colors as his senior prank to drive in the Apple Blossom Parade, who's going to start a GoFundMe account. In fact, he did start that GoFundMe account. And it came to the attention of the school district auditors. Fortunately, it only had about $20 in that account because the enthusiasm for that project waned thanks to the help of somebody from that village of supporters who helped to raise my fine young man of a son. The story I'm going to tell you today is how it probably took an entire village to keep my son alive. Sounds pretty dramatic, but in retrospect, it was. When he was 4 years old, I was very largely pregnant with my 3rd child. And we walked every day. We lived in Canyon Hills, which is above Broadview, so way up on the hill over there where you can see those lights at night. That's where we lived. We would walk down the hill, across Badger Mountain Road, sometimes quickly with the stroller, around Broadview, back across Badger Mountain Road, and then up that hill again. We did that every day. He's got these little feet that he could keep up. We took the stroller just in case he couldn't make it, but most of the time he made it the whole way. One day, my husband happens to be home. It's a great sports watching day. ESPN is on in spades. It's the middle of summer. He's home. And as a parent, sometimes it's nice to go for that walk all by yourself. So I told my husband, I'm going for a walk. Will you take care of Chris? Remember, he's 4. He's playing with his Buzz Lightyear figurine and his Woody figurine. He's having a great time. He'd rather stay home. So I left, knowing my husband would take great care of my child while I was gone, walked down the hill, enjoying the bright sunshine and the blue skies, past the construction workers on Canyon Hills. It's all built up now, but when we lived there, there were still a lot of houses going up and all of them were being worked on. So there were a whole village of people who watched us every single day. We waved at them sometimes. I didn't know their names, but they watched us. Big, I was kind of, pregnant belly, little boy. Went down the hill, across Badger Mountain Road, did my whole walk, got home. Chris is still playing with his Buzz Lightyear doll and his Woody doll upstairs. My husband's still downstairs watching ESPN. Later that evening, the phone rings. Hello? This is Alicia. I just wanted to make sure you knew about Chris. What about Chris? Well, this morning I saw him walking on the side of the road, barefoot, about a half a mile from your house. I said, really, I had no idea. She said, I thought maybe you ought to know. I pulled over by the side of the road and I said, hey, Chris, do you want to ride home? He goes, oh no, I'm fine. And he turns around in his little bare feet and runs all the way home, and she follows him in her car all the way to her house. He runs into the house or towards the door, and she goes, hey, Chris, go get your dad. I want to talk to him. He goes, oh no, you never want to talk to my dad. Shuts the door. So I asked my husband, I said, did you know that Chris had left the house? No, I had no idea he had left the house. He did come downstairs and he asked me where you were. And I told him that you went for a walk, and he went right back up the stairs. Did you think maybe he went somewhere? No, really, I didn't know you'd gone anywhere. It's not the first time my husband failed in his babysitting duties, but it was probably not the last time that the village has saved that child. So I appreciate all of you and your efforts when you notice something's off and you became part of a village that maybe saved the life of a child, because on that day, several construction workers also said to him, hey, maybe you should turn around. And the lady that was watering her flowers, who didn't really know him, but knew the pregnant belly and the little boy, maybe you shouldn't be out here by yourself. So by the time my friend Alicia found him by the side of the road, the wheels were already starting to turn. So the next time you notice something isn't quite right, make sure you say something, because that's what the village does. Thank you for being part of my village. Excellent.
Fabiola, could we have 1 minute, please?
She shared her Rubik's Cube.
She did. Okay, thank you so much. I missed it. I was looking. And the next speaker this evening is Dean Caraff. Did I pronounce your last name correctly, Dean?
Good job.
Dean's speech is Keep Moving. Our next speaker has a picture of his 3-year-old self carrying the rocks at his grandparents' dairy farm. This was not training for a life in prison, but rather presaged a lifelong love of physical activity. His favorite activities include hiking, climbing, skiing, cycling, canoeing, and yoga. He thinks being physically active greatly improves his quality of life and believes that being active will improve your lives. Please help me welcome Dean Caraff with his speech entitled Keep Moving.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests.
As I prepared to retire about 8 years ago, I decided that I'd better go to the doctor because I didn't want to be one of those people that died a month after I retired. The doctor said, "You're in pretty good shape, but you need more exercise." So I signed up for an aerobics class. At that first class, I bent, I twisted, I gyrated, I jumped up and down. I stood on one leg, I stood on the other leg. Unfortunately, class was over before I got these on. But the important thing is I kept moving. And that's what I want you to do. And I'm going to tell you why moving is important and offer a bit of advice. I'm going to primarily advocate aerobic activity, although recognize there are a lot of other kinds of things that are important to your body. Much of the information I have is from the American Heart Association, as well as my own experience. It's scientifically based and forms very good links between physical activity and our mental health, our physical health, disease prevention, and quality of life. First, I want to go over some of the benefits of physical activity. You can minimize your risk to a number of diseases that include heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, dementia and Alzheimer's, high blood pressure, and some kinds of cancer. Now, I signed up for Medicare last year, and I don't have any of those problems so far. You might say, well, you're just lucky, and I might be. But if I compare myself to my sedentary relatives, I'm in much better shape health-wise. You'll be able to help keep excess weight off. Again, I can compare myself to my sedentary relatives and make a pretty convincing case that being active is helping me a great deal. You will have better bone health and balance, which is important if you fall because you will minimize the risk of injury. Sleep is a very big thing to me, and you get better sleep if you're active. If I spend a hard day on the trail and get tired, I have no problem sleeping at least 8 hours a night. But if I'm at home, don't do anything, I struggle to get 6 hours of sleep. You will have improved cognition, including better memory and processing speed. Plus, many of my most creative thoughts over the years have occurred to me when I'm on a bike ride or a nice hike. You will minimize symptoms of depression and anxiety. I can't tell you how many times I've been depressed, stressed out, anxious, unhappy, or angry. And then I go for a hike or a bike ride, and I just feel all those negative emotions draining from me like water from a leaking bucket. You'll have better overall quality of life. I know I feel better when I get to do something. I've got a number of chronic aches and pains at my age, and they are all improved by staying active. And finally, it's just plain fun. I love to be outside doing something with the warm sun on my shoulders and the wind in my hair, at least when I had hair. Plus, the other thing is it gives you a great excuse to dress up in something fashionable like these. How can you pass that up? The American Heart Association recommends that you get at least 150 minutes of moderately intense activity a week. That's only a half an hour a day, 5 days a week. Or you can get 75 minutes of intense activity a week, which is only 15 minutes per day for 5 days. Some examples of moderately intensive activity are walking at a brisk pace, gardening, playing doubles tennis, or cycling at less than 10 miles an hour.
Some examples of intense physical activity are running, swimming, cycling at more than 10 miles per hour, playing singles tennis, and that kind of thing. If you're already active, and I suspect many of you are, good for you. Keep it up. If you're not that active, you may be wondering, what should I do or how to get started? Well, it's not really up to me to tell you how to get, what to do, but I will suggest that you live in a beautiful community, a beautiful state, and there's lots of opportunities outdoors. So you can go hiking, bicycling, golfing, swimming, paddling, any of a number of things. Perhaps walking is the easiest thing to do. All you need is a pair of comfortable shoes. Sometimes we all have motivational problems, sticking with it. One thing you can do is enlist the aid of some friends or workout partners. They help provide encouragement. Another thing you can do is to sign up for a class. Put some money in the game. That's good motivation, because if you don't go to class, you think, oh man, I just wasted that money. In summary, scientific evidence supports the benefits of being physically active. The benefits are for your mental and physical health, disease prevention, and you'll feel better. Get at least 150 minutes of moderate activity per week, or 75 minutes of intense activity per week. You have dozens of activities to choose from in your wonderful community. All you need to do is pick something and get going. I highly recommend, for your benefit, that you start moving and keep moving.
Fabiola, could we have 1 minute, please? Thank you. Time is up. With that, I would like to introduce the table topics master tonight. And tonight, that would be Christina Stepper.
Oh, there's applause, I can't stand it. Go green for a better tomorrow. I suffered from some abulia on this subject because I couldn't make it as obvious as it seems. Therefore, we are doing fun things, hopefully. I had to wear green too. In fact, I had to go change my clothes before we left. Go green for a better tomorrow. Does everyone want to participate? Celia, Jacob, want to participate? Yes, okay. I'll start with those who don't have roles tonight, and we'll work our way through. Eat your greens. Barbara, did you ever hear that when you were a child? How did you respond?
Thank you for that question. Eat your greens. Yes, I've heard that numerous times as a child. The green that I hated the most is when I heard it the most, and that's called Brussels sprouts. My mom used to cook Brussels sprouts mostly on holidays, and she would burn them, and they were disgusting. It really turned me off on all Brussels sprouts. I have never had a Brussels sprout since that was good. I also heard my mother telling me to always start with my veggies before going to, the thing I like the most. It was hard to kind of like adjust my plate so that it looked like I had eaten more of my vegetables than I had, so that I could go to the part that I loved the most. But it was very important for my mom for us to stay healthy, and I honestly was raised to appreciate greens and instill it on my children. So did my children here eat your greens? They did, but I can tell you I did not serve Brussels sprouts.
Thank you. Well done. There's a great expression, green about the gills. Celia, have you ever been green about the gills? Do you know what it means?
I'm going to take a stab at it.
Okay. This will be fun.
Thank you. Have I ever been green about the gills? If I think I understand what green about the gills is, it is referring to not feeling so great. Maybe either figuratively or actually feeling not well. The first thing that comes to mind when someone says green about the gills is a hangover. Maybe a little bit too much the night before. Maybe it doesn't matter what the too much of was. But the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned green about the gills was a recent Halloween, as in last week. Halloween is one of 2 days a year that I actually partake in alcoholic beverages, because our neighborhood has parties all over the place. It's more of an adult festival than it is a children's festival. There's bonfires everywhere and things going on. And so I did have a couple of beers on Halloween, and I felt green about the gills on Monday morning. It might have had something to do with mixing those beers with candy from my children's Halloween bags. Cute. I don't recommend it. Green about the gills, no matter how it is not a good way to be, if you can possibly avoid it.
Thank you. Thank you. Another great expression is the grass is always greener on the other side. Jacob, is the grass always greener on the other side?
Thank you for that question. Is the grass always greener on the other side? I am not always so sure, but I know that the grass will be greener in the future. So that's what I like to think about. Your saying reminds me of a saying that my grandmother used to say, and that is, the gardener does not plant the tree for himself. And as a young kid, not really thinking about it, I had no idea what that meant, because of course the gardener planted it for himself. He's the gardener, that's what his job is. As I've gotten older and just a touch bit more wiser, I realized that there is a lot of weight to that. The grass is greener on the other side. The gardener did not plant the tree for himself. He planted it for somebody else. The grass is not for you, it's for other people to enjoy. The tree is not for the gardener, it's for the people who come after the tree. It's for the people who will sit in the shade and see how tall it grows. The gardener won't know that, but the other people will. So the grass is always greener on the other side, or maybe it'll be greener later, but maybe not right now, but that's okay, because eventually it'll still look green. Thank you.
Nice job. Moving now into those who do have speaking roles. A hedge between keeps friendships green. Steve?
Wow, it's great.
A hedge between keeps friendships green.
A hedge between keeps friendship green. That so applies to me. I think about it almost more in a figurative way of speaking. When people say things and I see the inconsistency, I am really bad about not keeping my mouth shut. It's kind of like hopping over the hedge and saying, your English is terrible, you need to fix it. And then, of course, that sets them off on a tirade oftentimes, or they just quit talking, which is a Browning friendship, right? They're no longer part of the clan. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm at a loss for some reason. I could talk about green about the gills, though. It reminds me when I was in high school and I got a bottle of blackberry brandy.
Oh.
And when I got home, it had this much left.
Oh,
My brother and I shared a bed, which, and in the morning, he was not there. The results of consuming the blackberry brandy is that they return to the surface. And he just couldn't find the pleasure of sleeping in the room any longer. The joys of foolishness. That's all I got for you.
nice job. Here's another great expression. Laying down some serious green. Right. Have you ever laid down some serious green?
Thank you. What comes to mind when I hear that statement must mean spending money, correct?
That's right.
So the first thing that comes to my mind along the spending money front is both my children played hockey. Yes, I laid down some serious green. It was worth it. I felt like the financial investment saved me money and juvenile attorneys and whatnot. That's my parental strategy, was to keep them busy to where they couldn't get in trouble, and it worked well. Otherwise, like most all of us did going to college and repaying student loan debts, reminds me of laying down some green as well. In retrospect, it's all worth it. I wouldn't change the moments with my children playing sports and hockey. I wouldn't change having had the college experience myself, albeit a little non-traditional student. And my children are now incurring their own student loan debt, and they get to enjoy the laying down the green later in life. Thank you.
Thank you. The moon is made of green cheese. Where in the world did that come from? Pat?
I haven't the remotest idea. I never got it. The moon is made of green cheese. Whenever I look at the moon, it looks like a giant pearl in the sky, or it looks like a smiley face, a piece of melon, or whatever. It just doesn't look like green cheese. Furthermore, I don't think I've ever seen any green cheese. If you've seen green cheese and tasted it, would you raise your hand, please? Well, Dean, I envy you your life experience because you could probably have answered this much more intelligently than I have. You could enlighten me when I return to my seat. I don't know who originally said it. I don't know where it came from. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's not my image of the moon, and I don't even want to think of the moon in that way. So that's all I have to say about that.
That was awesome.
Well done. Fabiola. I was waiting for her to look up. You dress up in green for St. Patrick's Day?
I'm sorry, was the question, have I ever dressed up in green for St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I have not dressed up in green for St. Patrick's Day. I always am that person that forgets to wear green on St. Patrick's Day. And I tell everyone that my chonies are green so that I don't get pinched when because I never remember that. I know my kids always remember that. And when I intentionally go to the parades for St. Patrick's Day, then I will wear green. But to think about it first thing in the morning and dress in green and walk out of my house, I have not been very good about being conscientious of that. But I support St. Patrick's Day, and I will try to be more conscientious of that in the future. Thank you for the question.
See that you are, after all. What can I say? Eric, do you have a green thumb?
Thank you. I grew up in Freda, and I was about 8 years old. And there was a bunch of neighbor kids. And I got a brand new bike, and I was really proud of this bike. And I had a neighbor, Kevin Lackaduck. I'll say his name out loud. And he didn't like that I had a new bike. So he would throw rocks at me when I was driving by, and he'd hit me. And I got off that bike and chased him. He went right in the door and got inside, shut the door. That happened probably about 3 times. And he figured there was an invisible hedge between me and him. And I was fast. And he knew that, so he got the distance down just right. And I was acting like I wasn't really paying attention. And I got off the bike and I just put it into jets. And I got to him right to his porch, jumped him right into his living room, got on the floor, bam, 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 right in his face. And his parents were coming down the stairway. And they just looked at me. They didn't say a word. And I just calmly got up and walked right out. So that's my invisible head story.
I think he answered the green with envy question. We'll give you that one.
Thank you.
Everyone with either no role or a minor role has had a question, and we have a couple minutes left. Would anyone else of those who have larger speaking roles be interested, or shall we call it at this? I see no hands going up. We'll call it at this. Thank you, everyone. That was tons of fun. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Christina. Great topics. And now I will reintroduce our general evaluator, Pat Whitfield.
I withhold my words of wisdom until all of the specialists have given theirs. So Vicki, would you please come forward and share with us your evaluation of Selena's speech? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Selena, I commend you for doing a speech on body movement and gestures, because a lot of our gestures are right here when we're giving a speech. And now you only have this part up. So great job at tackling this to begin with. One thing that you really excelled at was when you were talking about your walk, and you went up the hill and around and down, and you really gave us this visual, and you explained it a couple more times, and you always did the same gestures. So it was a consistent thing going on, which is nice, especially when you're listening to a speech and you're, if something goes off, then your brain kind of goes, what? But you're very consistent with that. So that was one thing that you excelled at. One thing that you might want to work on is finding moments in your speech when you can accentuate your gestures. One opportunity you had was when you were talking about your son's age, and he was 4. If you'd said 4, that would have just given us another one of those gestures. So it was there. Let me see. To challenge yourself, we have great technology because you have this room, but we also have the technology, and it uses the whole screen, and you can see it. Our virtual people can really see your movements as well, which is nice, because when we were all on Zoom, we all remember just being little boxes, and every time I was really bad at it, my little jazz fingers coming up, and so take advantage of that, and because you can use the stage. Now, just a little pro tip though, because you are really excelling at your speeches, is if you are going to be using a camera and you want to accentuate different sides of the room, you will notice that our camera here in the room is backwards. And that is because on the Zoom category, when you log in, there's a way of saying mirror image, and I think mirror might be on at this point. That's why our sign down here is backwards to everybody. And if you look up there, if you can see anybody, you'll notice that you would be on this side, Brett's on this side. So just a pro tip, kind of know your technology if you're using it. But otherwise, great job. I commend you.
Thank you. All right. Floyd, please you share with us your observations of Dean's speech?
Thank you, Pat. This was a really good speech, Dean. I liked it a lot. What did you excel at? A great attention-grabbing introduction. It's not so easy to come up with something that's clever yet appropriate. Pretty easy to come up with something shocking or stupid or whatever. But this one was good, and it fit the speech too. It had an unusual feature because it made you wonder, what exactly is he getting at? Well, that's the point. It draws the audience in. I thought that was really well done. The organization of the speech and the signposting were really good. Very near the front of the speech, you told us, you know, they're going, I believe there were 4 things you were going to talk about, and you did. You talked about all of them. And signposting like that, if you think back to your college days, it's really helpful. It was easy to follow instructors who would signpost, not so easy to follow the more or less random people. I thought the language that you used in the speech was very, very good. It was appropriate both for the subject matter, but also for the audience. It would have been easy to get technical with this speech, talking about exercise physiology and whatnot. You didn't do that. It would have been easy to get preachy, you know, kind of all of us, I believe, know people are kind of exercise evangelists, if that makes sense. You know, they rant about the glories of it and all that. You didn't do that. You just calmly told us why we should exercise. I thought that was really well done. As I said, appropriate for both the subject and the audience. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, the topic itself, very good topic, applicable to everybody in the group, any age, any gender, like that. Not so easy to come up with topics like that. And those were really well done things. Those 4 things made for a really good speech, I thought. Very, very well done. Fit the assignment perfectly. What you want to work on, what you may want to work on. gestures. You did have gestures, you know, and they weren't that bad, but you had a default position almost every time went like this. You spent a very large amount of the speech actually. You know, you gesture a little bit, and then it would go back this. It was kind of like the, you know, the machine coming back to the neutral position or whatever. It wasn't terrible or distracting, but it became noticeable, at least to me. You may have noticed these things you may want to work on are a little picky, and that's because it was a good speech. The other thing was eye contact. It seemed to me, now you did look around a little bit, but it seemed to me you spent quite a bit of time like this, looking at the computer screen. I don't know whether you did or not, but it looked that way to me. You know, looking up would have been the obvious thing. As I say, kind of picky quibbles, but that's the way it goes. Challenge yourself. More speeches. I thought this one was really good. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Fabiola, how did we do on time?
Thank you, madam. We did excellent this evening. Our presenters, first, Dean's presentation was 7 minutes and 10 seconds. Selena's was 6 minutes and 3 seconds. For our table topics, Brian was 1 minute and 10 seconds. Pat was 59 seconds. Sue was 1 minute, 32 seconds. Steve was 1 minute and 47 seconds. Jacob was 1 minute and 5 seconds. Eric was 1 minute and 23 seconds. Barbara was 1 minute and 6 seconds. And I believe I was about 50 seconds. For the evaluators, when they provided their reports, Vicki was 2 minutes and 29 seconds, and Lloyd was 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiola. And Eric, now you can tell us what we did in terms of language and everything else.
Just so you know, my goal is for Marion is to find a word that nobody used. So the last 3 words have been words I haven't even heard before. And Abulia is one of those. But we always got people to spoil the party. Christina used it, Steve used it, Steve always tries to use it. So good job, but those are the only 2 that I recall. I didn't have any egregious uses of the English language that made me shiver, but it had some good uses that I liked. Takes a village, I like that expression. Dean used the metaphor like water leak from a leaking bucket. Cecilia said, I'll take a stab at it. Pat, giant pearl in the sky. Lloyd used the term signpost in describing a speech, which was cool. And exercise evangelist, I like those 2. That's my
Thank you very much. Thank you. Steve will now recount for us our sins. Hopefully they were too plentiful.
Thank you. Tonight, Bart did great, one so. Vicki, you were jamming along and then all of a sudden you decided, was going to be a nice little addition to your speaking. One and I think there was a but in there, and a teeny repetition, not a big deal. Lloyd, you had a couple of uhs towards the end, was only 5. And one kind of a little repetition. Fabiola, you did very nicely tonight. 3 for ums. Brian, 1 and. Selena had an and, a well, and 3 so's. Dean, you almost made it. You had a but in there somewhere. Celia, I didn't catch anything.
I did. I caught myself, but you didn't catch yourself, so it's important.
Never throw yourself under the bus. Jacob, you were jamming 2. You got an and a so. Exemplary. We're just coming out of the chutes, but you do have some background in speaking. I had to pretend that ever again. Pat, You were doing really well, and just towards the end here, you managed to find an and and a couple of so's to throw out there. Christina, of course, is always just clean as a whistle. Eric, I don't know what happened to you, boy. You lit up with the ands. You started 40% of your thing with and he, and I, and. So, 4 of those. That's my report.
This evening was characterized by a great deal of humor all the way through. The speeches, the evaluations, the table topics and stuff, the speakers, Selena's movements were so appropriate, and Vicki has commented on that very thoroughly. Dean, oh, and I just did my Denise, okay. Such an entertaining opening, showing the aerobics class. And there was good research behind it, but it wasn't fed to us in a researchy way. It was really applied to the situation so we all could understand it. And I just don't know what to say about the pants. Definitely added some oomph to the speech. I wish that you had worn them. That would have been very interesting. As for the table topics were not characterized by Amelia at all. They were filled with humor and creativity. I love the fact that the table topics master set the tone by coming in green with a green mask, dressed for the occasion. And there we were, there she was, all dressed in green. Lots of creative responses. Again, as I said, infused with humor. Steve really got our attention when it was his turn. And he went, and we went, okay, man, you just did that on purpose. So overall, it was not only joyful, it was joyous this evening. And I think that we all need that every now and then, especially since it's getting so dark so early. It was a really vital meeting. Thank you. And now, back to our, oh, sorry, it was the Toastmaster, it's the president, sorry.
Before I call a meeting, I would like to call on Vicki for any announcements, please.
That's my fun job. I love to do this part. We have 2 people who have completed levels. And first, I would like to present to Selena Nico for level 1 presentation mastery. Congratulations. There's your evaluation for tonight. And then for achieving level 4 in effective coaching, Lloyd Smith. So how many levels are you completed? Or not levels, paths have you completed?
Three.
You've completed 3, so this is your 4th. And you're almost.
Level 5.
He's just rolling through this, so we can all do that, so
Sure.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Back to you, Madam President.
Congratulations to Selena and to Lloyd. It is nearly 6:30, so I'm gonna go ahead and just call a meeting unless anybody has any other announcements. All right, thank you again for coming tonight. Have a good evening.
Oh, it was moldy.
Oh, yeah.